As soon as Amelia spoke, her tone hinting at a realization, Subaru paused his mock battle and turned toward the mansion. Approaching them were two maids with distinct pink and light blue hair. Moving in perfect sync, they came to a stop and executed a formal bow. "Master Roswaal, the lord of the manor, has returned. Please come to the mansion." Their flawless synchronization caught Subaru off guard, but what truly surprised him was the shift in the demeanor. Just moments ago, they had been playfully bantering, but now they carried themselves with the composed professionalism befitting proper mansion attendants. It was as if they had switched seamlessly from casual to formal mode. "I see. Roswaal, huh? Then we should go and meet him." "Yes, and he has also requested the guest's presence, if he is awake." At that, Puck shrank in size and nestled himself into Amelia's silver hair. She gently patted her head, letting him settle in, and took a deep breath, her expression growing a little more composed. Meanwhile, Subaru, now the focus of the conversation, wiped the sweat from his face, suddenly self-conscious about his disheveled appearance. Before he could react further, the blue-haired maid stepped forward, swiftly producing a handkerchief from her bosom. With practiced efficiency, she tidied up his appearance. "Sorry," Subaru muttered awkwardly. "It's my duty as a servant, sir," she replied with composed professionalism. "It's my job as a servant, sir," the pink-haired maid interjected, as if it were only natural to join in. Their brief return to their usual banter eased Subaru's nerves. With a small sigh of relief, he shifted his focus back to the conversation at hand. "So, who's this Roswaal guy?" "The lord of this manor." "Ah, I suppose I never explained that," Amelia admitted, touching her fingertips to her lips as if only now realizing her oversight. After a brief moment of contemplation, she sighed. "Well, he'll understand once you meet him." "What kind of answer is that? Is he so forgettable that he's not even worth describing?" Subaru protested. "No, quite the opposite." The synchronized four-person rebuttal left Subaru momentarily stunned, causing him to fumble his wooden sword. Before it could hit the ground, the blue-haired maid flicked it up with her foot, caught it effortlessly, and bowed gracefully before rejoining her sister. Meanwhile, the pink-haired maid gestured toward the mansion. "There's no need to put it into words. You'll understand Master Roswaal's personality once you meet him, sir. It'll all make sense soon enough." The two maids exchanged a knowing glance and nodded, while Amelia hesitated for a moment before reluctantly agreeing with them. Subaru, still puzzled, felt a light tap on his shoulder. "You'll be fine, Subaru. I think you two will get along well enough," Amelia reassured him as she walked ahead. "Just a warning, he can be a bit of a headache." Subaru let out a quiet sigh, muttering a half-hearted response. "That doesn't sound reassuring at all." "Oh, you're awake. That is good. Quite good." The voice was cheerful, almost musical, as the tall man with long, dark blue hair regarded Subaru with a grin. He was strikingly tall, his height even surpassing Reinhardt's, standing at around 6 feet. His frame was slender, almost unnaturally so, as if he had never engaged in any physical labor. But rather than simply thin, his build had an air of delicacy to it, giving the impression of someone untouched by hardship. His most distinguishing features were his heterochromatic eyes, one yellow, one blue, which contrasted starkly against his ghastly pale skin. His complexion made him look as though he were perpetually unwell, adding to his eerie presence. By conventional beauty standards, his appearance was undeniably attractive. However, no matter how beautiful he was, his proximity alone was enough to unsettle anyone. "Your face is too close," Subaru blurted out, leaning back instinctively. The man laughed lightly. Suri. You see, the first time I saw you, you were deathly pale, covered in blood, and on the verge of death. I'm deeply moved to see you walking around like this." His tone, drawn out and exaggerated, made it difficult to tell whether he was mocking Subaru or genuinely pleased. Regardless, he gave Subaru's shoulders a friendly pat before once again leaning in far too close. This was the master of the mansion, Roswaal. Subaru's first impression of him was that he looked to be in his mid-20s. His appearance, demeanor, and eccentric speech pattern all painted the picture of a prodigal son, the kind of noble who had never known hardship yet still carried an air of intelligence. No, even like this, I'm sure you're a pretty sharp guy," Subaru muttered, squinting at him. Roswaal's lips curled into an amused smirk. "Is that Sue? That's a nice assessment." Then, tilting his head dramatically, he gestured toward himself. "Stare at me to your heart's content. Do I look sharp? Well, His exaggerated theatrics made it hard to tell whether he was playing along or making a joke at Subaru's expense. Either way, Subaru couldn't help but sigh. Yeah, you're sharp, alright, like a knife I'd rather not get too close to. Roswaal struck a pose, spinning in place before standing as if he were a model. His imposing stance exuded a kind of exaggerated confidence that made Subaru instinctively take a few steps back in astonishment. "In no way have I been outmatched here," Subaru blurted out, eyes wide with disbelief. "It's not normal for someone to be more of a character than me. Isn't that a hindrance in your daily life?" "Well, it really doesn't matter to me, either way." A sigh interrupted their exchange, and Subaru turned to see Amelia stepping forward just as he took another step back in shock. She gracefully placed herself between him, then addressed Roswaal with a polite, if slightly tired, smile. "Welcome back. How have you been?" "I'm fine. I feel quite pleased," Roswaal answered, tilting his head theatrically. "It's been 4 days, 3 hours, and 19 minutes since we last spoke. I'll have to write it down in my notebook." As if on cue, 2 maids, one pink-haired, one light blue-haired, stepped forward and reverently handed him a notebook and pen. Without missing a beat, Roswaal opened it and began scribbling furiously. "On the 15th day of the month of Tadmus, Lady Amelia spoke to me herself. I am very happy. I feel like we are starting to get along, and..." Satisfied, he snapped the notebook shut and handed it back to the maid, turning around with a pleased expression, only to be met by Amelia's slightly bemused smile. And by Subaru's deadpan stare. No, seriously, that was just cringe. Peeking at the notebook-turned diary in the maid's hands, Subaru noticed it was well used. Nearly half of its pages were filled, presumably with the same kind of obsessive drivel Roswaal had just written down. If the entire thing was like that, then that's the notebook of nightmares. Roswaal, however, seemed entirely unfazed. In fact, he clapped his hands against his knees, practically glowing with enthusiasm. "Cringe. It's a nice word. This is my first time hearing it, and I love it. The feeling of not being able to understand a different sensibility, oh, it's wonderful." Subaru recoiled. "Wow, I hate that I kinda sympathize with that. Hey, did you really say I could get along with this guy?" As Roswaal grabbed his shoulders in a strangely intimate way, Subaru turned to Amelia, waving the topic at her with frustration. "Am I regarded as the same as this?" Amelia tapped a finger to her lips, looking genuinely thoughtful before letting out a small, slightly amused, "As expected, not even you are a match for this country's top pervert, Subaru, or are you? Not even close. Is it really that fine a line? With that? One man's fault is another man's lesson, or so they say, but being put on the same level as the weirdo in front of him was a real blow to Subaru's pride. From this moment on, he vowed to be more careful about what he said and did. "Anyways, come back, Subaru said, forcibly shifting the topic. "Now let me thank you. Thanks for causing me so much trouble, and thanks for letting me use your bed. Sincerely, Subaru." "Oh, it's so messed up already." Subaru was far too prideful to express genuine gratitude, but Roswaal seemed to take it all in stride, simply whistling in response. Meanwhile, Amelia, trapped between the two of them, rubbed her temples as if she were getting a headache. The twins, for their part, wisely chose to stay out of it entirely, standing still as though they had no intention of ever interfering. Even Puck, who had been nestled in Amelia's hair, remained quiet, as if silently distancing himself from the situation. Anyways, Roswaal suddenly gave Subaru a once-over, his gaze scanning him from head to toe with an oddly serious expression. After a moment, he frowned. "You look like a normal person, and that's a bit disappointing." Subaru stiffened, visibly offended. "Hey, hold up, you think I'm just a normal guy? Normal is neither good nor bad. That evaluation is insulting to me. Take back what you said." "Why get angry about something like that, I suppose," Beatrice muttered from the side, sighing as she observed the utterly ridiculous exchange. Subaru, of course, wasn't about to let it go. "I refuse to be seen as just normal," he declared. Roswaal, ever the eccentric, merely smiled, clearly entertained by the outburst. For Subaru, that was a line that couldn't be crossed. Sensing his defiance, Roswaal simply waved a hand. Sorry, he said, dragging out his words as usual. "I mean, normal, in the racial sense. You see, I'm a perverted nobleman with demi-human tastes." "You must be pretty devilish to say that about yourself, huh?" Subaru groaned, pressing his hands against his face. Oh man, I think I'm starting to like you a little, and I hate myself for it. Roswaal chuckled in amusement at Subaru's reaction, then draped his arms around the twin maids standing beside him. The same applies to these two, which is also why we support Lady Amelia. Wheel, I suppose that makes us birds of a feather, though I imagine that just makes me more suspicious to you, doesn't it? As he spoke, Roswaal idly stroked the twins' chins with his fingers, creating an air of strange, almost immoral intimacy. The twins obediently remained still, but their faces flushed bright red, as if they had already fallen prey to his poison. Watching this, Subaru felt a bad premonition bubbling in his gut and shot a glance at Amelia. She immediately waved her hands in protest. Don't get the wrong idea. I'm not interested in perverts. Normal is a-okay, Subaru muttered, retreating into his thoughts. Go to college after high school, find a stable job, support a family like everyone else. For a moment, he entertained the idea of a typical, normal life. But then, he recalled the fathers in his world who lived such lives, and how hard they had it. Before he could dwell on it further, something about Roswaal's words struck him as off. Wait, what do you mean by supporting Amelia Tan? I still don't get what the relationship between you two actually is. Ooh, you don't know? Roswaal tilted his head theatrically. That's strange. Releasing the twins, he strolled over to Subaru with his hands behind his back, looming over him. This time, Subaru didn't flinch. Their eyes met, and sparks seemed to fly between them. The noble's gaze was sharp, as if trying to read Subaru's every thought. It was uncomfortably intense, but looking away now would feel like admitting defeat. If Roswaal was testing him, then Subaru was ready to fight back. Their staring contest intensified, the space between them shrinking little by little. Don't look away. Don't lose. Gritting his teeth, Subaru focused all his willpower into his glare. 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 Moi. Hogia. A reflexive uppercut shot out before Subaru even realized what had happened. Roswaal, who had just kissed Subaru's forehead, went flying. The twin maids scrambled to catch him before he crashed to the ground. Meanwhile, Subaru furiously rubbed at his forehead, his entire body shuddering. Wah, what the hell? What was that boo out? Ah, it hooits, Roswaal whined dramatically. Then, with a smirk, he added, Boo, I couldn't help but notice your innocent, trembling gaze, and I found myself a bit aroused. I can't help but clench my butt. Stop looking at me like that, Subaru yelled, his entire face burning. Still rubbing his forehead, he clenched his fist, ready to throw another punch, but before he could, the twin maids stepped forward, glaring at him with clear hostility. Of course, no matter what, they weren't about to let anyone get away with hitting their master. Seeing the clear animosity in their eyes, Subaru instinctively took a step back. But before the tension could escalate, Roswaal waved a hand, stopping them. Stop, Ram and Rem. It was my bad joke. He's not at fault. I guess it's my mistake for being too girly. Subaru scoffed. If you're treating me like a maiden because of the way I looked at you, you need your eyesight checked, nobleman. I was a cute little flower up until kindergarten, but the moment I started school, my parents shaved the back of my head. He shuddered at the memory. His parents had a simple solution to making sure he wouldn't be mistaken for a girl. Just cut his hair. Nowadays, he found the rough feel of a shaved back comforting, but back then, he had cried about it a lot. His parents had played a huge role in shaping his personality. His mother never listened to anyone, and his father was a relentless go-getter. The twins, though still disgruntled over their lord's treatment, took a step back. Meanwhile, Roswaal, rubbing his sore jaw, stood up. I apologize for that. It was my fault. So, as a token of my regret, how about out breakfast together? My triad. Subaru narrowed his eyes. Just so we're clear, I'm not working for it. But if it's free, I'm eating to my heart's content. That's a good thing. Eating well is living well. I like that one. I should write it down. Roswaal held out a hand, and the twins promptly placed a notebook and pen in his grasp. Without hesitation, he began scribbling notes in smooth, practiced strokes. Judging by his focus, it didn't seem to be a bizarre diary dedicated to love with Amelia Tan. If you were to write about your daily life, wouldn't it end up like a collection of poems? I feel like I'll agonize over reading it all again in the future. But if I'm still doing this at that age, then there's no hope for me anyway. Subaru snorted. The inhabitants of a flower garden never realized they lived in one. He decided to just accept it and move on. Anyway, I'll take you up for breakfast. I haven't eaten since yesterday before noon, let alone had breakfast. Splendid. Wheel then, I'll have them show you around. Rem, take care of it. You can count on us, Master Roswaal. The twins responded in perfect sync, moving to either side of Subaru. Before he could react, each one took hold of an arm, locking him in place with an iron grip. Hey, what's with this whole escorted away vibe? Look, even if you don't hold me like this, I'm not gonna run. And neither will the dining table. Hey, that hurts a little. So, let me show you around, sir. Well, let me show you around, sir. Oi, listen. This is as far as my elbows can bend. Wait, you two still haven't forgiven me for that uppercut earlier, have you? But come on, that guy was the one in the wrong. Ow. My elbows. They don't bend that way. Despite his protests and exaggerated cries of pain, Subaru was dragged off toward the dining hall, his arms locked in an unyielding grip. Watching him disappear, Amelia sighed, her violet eyes filled with quiet sympathy. Once the trio was out of sight, Roswaal turned to her with an unreadable expression. Wheel, how was it really, Lady Amelia? His voice carried its usual eccentric drawl, yet there was a weight beneath it, something more deliberate. Amelia, unshaken by the shift in tone, answered without hesitation. It's the same as yours. Puck feels the same way too, right? Peeking out from behind her silver hair, the small cat spirit gave a slow, affirming nod. Roswaal's eyes narrowed, seemingly pleased with her response. Meanwhile, Amelia pressed a hand against her chest, the slightest trace of guilt flickering in her expression. I'm really not sure if I should be suspicious of my benefactor. I know it concerns me, but it's just awful. Her words slipped out in a self-deprecating murmur, as if mocking herself for the doubt gnawing at her conscience. You know, watching that from above, I couldn't help but think, you're completely out of your mind. In the dining room where the twins had led them for breakfast, a curly-haired girl who had already taken her seat greeted him with those words. Subaru frowned dramatically as he rubbed his still aching elbows. What are you even talking about this early in the morning, Loli? What is that word, I wonder? I've never heard it before, yet it fills me with an unsettling feeling, I suppose. I mean, you're way too young for my tastes. I don't chase after girls younger than me. To be so rude to Betty is truly pitiful. With a sigh, the girl leaned back in her chair, resting her weight against it. Without further comment, she picked up the glass on the table and took a sip of its amber liquid. The shape of the glass reminded Subaru of a wine glass, and he couldn't help but wonder if it actually contained alcohol. Sensing his suspicion, the girl smirked and casually pointed the glass in his direction. What? Do you want a drink, I wonder? Yeah, but that would be an indirect kiss. That's skipping way too many steps. I was only teasing you out of spite, but what is this strange feeling? This is more embarrassing for me. The girl huffed in frustration as Subaru, flustered, tapped his fingers together. At this moment, the two of them were the only ones in the dining room, giving them free rein over the conversation. A large table covered with a white tablecloth occupied the center of the spacious room, surrounded by about 10 chairs. Some places were already set with dishware, meaning Subaru could choose freely where to sit. I'm gonna take the best seat, he declared. That's a bold choice, she remarked. But it's also the wrong one, in fact. Hey, this is where Amelia Tan usually sits, right? Just imagining our butts touching indirectly is making me giddy with excitement. Are you a high-level pervert, I wonder? That's not just creepy, it's disgusting, in fact. Subaru had plenty of things he wanted to say in response, but the girl's exasperated, straight man attitude was just too much fun to poke at. Seeing her react like that made teasing her irresistible. So, just so you know, I'm not actually doing this on purpose, gee hee hee. That laugh wasn't convincing at all. I can't take anything you say seriously, in fact. She pressed a hand to her forehead and shook her head as Subaru shifted in his seat, warming it up with exaggerated movements. Still, I guess it all worked out in the end, but damn, that was rough. Thinking back to their first encounter, which had ended with him fainting, Subaru rotated his arms and legs as if stretching out his frustrations. Now that I think about it, the number of times I've lost consciousness in the past 2 days is actually kinda terrifying. I feel like I've barely had a chance to stand on my own 2 feet. That's not much different from when I was a shut-in, is it? Wouldn't it be nice if I could just laze around instead? Watching him with a bored expression, the girl stifled a yawn. Your gate was wide open, spilling mana everywhere. It would have been a waste to let it all escape. so I absorbed it. In fact, you should be grateful. It was your fault that it was leaking like that. Shouldn't you be the one thanking me instead? Don't try to act all high and mighty, you're just ridiculous, and aren't you being a little too sassy?" Ignoring Subaru's endless complaints, the girl took another sip from her glass, clearly unbothered. Subaru, however, wasn't done. The young girl then became acquainted with nighttime amusements, spent way too much money, and in the end, got knocked up as a teenager. As your big bro, I can't help but weep. Don't just go making Betty the tragic heroine of a great disaster. In fact, in my mind, you're the shitty protagonist of a shitty cell phone novel. There had been a time when Subaru had passed the hours browsing through those kinds of stories, though finding a good one was always a matter of luck. She probably didn't even understand what he meant, but with a scowl, the girl lightly tapped her fingers against the table. Well, so be it. Are you going to give Betty words of thanks, I wonder? Thanks? Giving thanks to the drill lowly who just berated me? That's not much of a reward in my book. Why are you the one getting mad, I wonder? The one who should be angry is Betty. The one who saved you when you were on the brink of death was. Before she could finish, Subaru let out a loud, exaggerated hooah. But before she could snap back, the door to the dining room swung open. Please pardon me, sir. Allow me to set the meal. If you would excuse me, sir, I will set the table and serve the tea. The twin maids entered, each pushing a trolley. The blue-haired maid's cart was filled with an assortment of breakfast foods, salad, pastries, and other standard fare. Meanwhile, the pink-haired maid carried tableware and utensils. With practiced efficiency, they moved to either side of the table, setting everything in perfect sync. The warm scents filled the air, making Subaru's stomach growl involuntarily. Whoa, not bad. This is a breakfast fit for nobility. I was worried it'd be some weird otherworldly stuff. After all, he had considered the possibility that food in this world could be something completely alien. If things had gone differently, he might have ended up eating bugs every day. And if that were the case, Subaru would have no choice but to sever his ties with this world and ascend to nirvana. For real, though, bugs are just too much. Why do those things even exist? Just look at them. The way they live, their sole purpose in life is to be squashed so kids can learn the value of life, isn't it? If you oppress the weak, when you yourself become weak, you will be oppressed by the strong. You should learn the significance of those words, in fact. Silence, I suppose, you weakling. The little girl swirled her drink dramatically, as if imparting some profound wisdom. Her forced elegance grated on Subaru's nerves. His irritation peaked, his hunger rising with it. Hurry up already. I can't take it anymore. You are quite lacking in refinement. Can you not wait in a more elegant manner, I suppose? I don't want to be talked down to by a drunk little girl. Come on, let's eat. Let's eat. Slamming his knife and fork together impatiently, Subaru was about to dig in when the little girl moved her hand over her glass. The space around it warped slightly, and a faint, ominous energy gathered at her fingertips. Before her trickery could take effect, however, "Umai, you seem to be doing well. That is good, quite good." The voice that interrupted was accompanied by a wide, twisted smile. A perverted man stood in the doorway, dressed in an outlandishly gaudy outfit, its oversized collars clashing horribly with its excessive colors. His entire appearance screamed bad taste. And yet, his eccentricity hadn't changed in the slightest. Oh yes, he was a total pervert. As Subaru cheerfully chopped up some beets with his silverware, Roswaal suddenly noticed a little girl quietly tilting her glass. Raising an eyebrow, he remarked, "Oh my, what a rare sight indeed. Beatrice, joining me for a meal after such a long time. Isn't that just wonderful?" Beatrice, brushing off his buddy-buddy attitude, simply sighed. "That's enough. There's already one happy-go-lucky guy here. In fact, Betty is only here to share a meal with Bubby, I suppose." Her gaze shifted past Roswaal as another figure entered the room. Amelia. Nestled within her silver hair was a familiar presence. "Bubby." The little girl sprang from her seat, dashing across the room with her long skirt fluttering behind her. Her face bloomed into a radiant smile, so pure and charming that it made Subaru momentarily forget how he had just described her as cheeky. Her excitement was directed toward the gray cat nestled in Amelia's silver locks. As his head poked out, the feline let out a relaxed greeting. "Hiya, Betty. It's been, what, 2 days? Have you been behaving like a proper lady? I have been eagerly awaiting your return, Bubby. Would you like to spend the day together, I wonder?" "Yeah, sounds great. How about we just take it easy today? Oh, how wonderful. With that, Puck leapt from Amelia's hair into Beatrice's outstretched hands. She twirled around joyfully, holding him close. As Subaru watched the scene unfold, struck senseless by the carefree atmosphere, Amelia approached him with a wry smile. Surprising, huh? Beatrice and Puck are super close. Subaru, still processing what he had just seen, muttered, a surprise. More like, what the hell is up with that Loli's attitude? She's putting on airs in front of a cat. Amelia tilted her head in confusion. I'm sorry, but I have no idea what you're saying. Then, her gaze shifted to where Subaru was sitting. That seat is. Realizing what she meant, Subaru jumped in with an explanation. Oh, yeah. You know how a freezing cold chair can totally kill your mood, right? I thought I'd keep it warm for you as part of my grand campaign to become your personal blanket, cure your loneliness, and bridge the gap between us. It's not like I was going for an indirect sit down or anything. Amelia blinked. Sorry, but I still have no idea what you're saying, but you do know that's Roswaal's seat, right? Subaru's entire world crumbled. With his knees buckling, he crashed to the floor, teeth clenched in despair. Of course, he realized, the owner of the mansion would sit in the seat of honor. And the Greenhorn of the Year award goes to. Still, Subaru wasn't one to give up so easily. He clenched his fists. But I'm a man who turns adversity into opportunity. Under these circumstances, yes. I'll bet on another chance tomorrow. And there's no need for you to sit in my seat, okay? Because it's a bit unpleasant for me. God is dead. Subaru collapsed fully, crying a river of despair. Just as all hope seemed lost, a warm hand rested gently on his shoulder. A beacon of comfort, a tender touch. Subaru lifted his head, eyes shining with hope. Only to see, I will properly savor your warmth as best I can. Roswaal. Without hesitation, Subaru spat directly onto the seat. Enjoy the warmth from where my ass was, now that it's been dirtied like this. Roswaal, far from offended, chuckled with clear amusement. Oh my, such a quick response. How splendid. But, no matter. Raising a finger, he pointed at the seat. Subaru barely had time to register what was happening before. The spit vanished. What the? Subaru reached out, running his hand over the chair. No trace of liquid remained, only the lingering warmth. Did it evaporate? He could only assume there was some connection between the heat of the seat and the sudden disappearance of the spit. Roswaal whistled in admiration at Subaru's conclusion. Oh my, you hit the bull's eye. I manipulated the scale of the flame, using an extremely small amount of mana so that only that part of the seat would heat up for a moment. What? The way you said that makes it sound like that was easy. Could it be that you're not actually a perverted idiot? Actually, he's the Kingdom of Lugunika's head court magician. Subaru turned his head sharply at Amelia's voice, surprised by her sudden interjection. He blinked, trying to process what she had just said. His gaze shifted back to Roswaal as he muttered the words head court magician under his breath. That's quite the look of disbelief on your face. No freaking way, I totally believe you. Yep. I totally believe you now. I believe you. I'm not convinced, but I'm not going to argue about it, Amelia sighed, quickly giving up on the discussion. In the short time she had known Subaru, she had learned that ignoring him was often the best way to handle his boundless energy. Subaru, for reasons he didn't want to acknowledge, found himself oddly intrigued by her indifference. This feeling, let's not examine it too closely. Amelia had taken a different seat now, not the seat of honor but likely the one she usually occupied. Observing the dining setup, Subaru realized something. Other than the seat of honor, Amelia's seat, and Beatrice's, the rest of the large table was nearly empty. His own assigned seat was a good distance from the others, making it feel oddly incomplete. If they were actually using the full space of the table, the arrangement would end up being unbalanced. Yeah, this isn't fun like this, he muttered. With that, he grabbed his plate and began shifting everything: salad, pastries, utensils, all accompanied by the clinking sounds of fine china. Hey, don't mind me, believe in Jesus. Who's that? Amelia asked, visibly perplexed. Ignoring the question, Subaru successfully relocated himself right beside her. She stared at him, bewildered, as he settled in. Or, come on. Instead of eating separately, why don't we sit together and be friendly? Hey, if you don't like vegetables, just put them on my plate. Pat. How about it? Then you can have my green bep. No, that'd be bad manners. Isn't wasting good food the real crime here? Besides, eating next to a cute girl totally makes the food taste better. I refuse to compromise on that. What do you think, Rosie? At the nickname, Roswaal arched an eyebrow and pointed at himself. Are you perhaps referring to me? Who else would it be? Rosie suits you. Roswaal chuckled at the unexpected name before turning to Amelia, who looked utterly exasperated. Don't be upset, Lady Amelia. While decorum is important, you won't be able to enjoy your meal if you cling to it too rigidly, even among those you know well. Oh, his words are correct. Since it was the decree of the Lord of the Manor, that was that. Amelia sighed in resignation just as Ram and Rem, who had been standing by, began serving dishes. Steaming plates lined the table one after another, and before long, breakfast was ready. Well then, let us eat. To the trees, the wind, the stars, and the earth. Roswaal pressed his palms together, closing his eyes in prayer. Amelia and the twins quickly followed suit. Even Beatrice, who had returned to her seat, went through the motions, albeit half-heartedly. Realizing it was a pre-meal prayer, Subaru hurriedly copied them. Ha! Never thought I'd see a Christian-like prayer in another world. The way they observed it so earnestly suggested Roswaal and Amelia were deeply religious, while the twins followed out of habit. Beatrice, on the other hand, seemed to be barely tolerating the process. Well then, Subaru. Roswaal's voice snapped him out of his thoughts. She may not look it, but Rem's cooking is quite something, is it not? The prayer had ended without him noticing, and Subaru, eager to dig in, wasted no time grabbing his utensils. The breakfast consisted of salad, freshly baked bread, and an assortment of toppings, something resembling ham, which could be paired with the toast. The setup was distinctly Western in style, and though the details were a little unclear, the meal looked promising. Without hesitation, Subaru took a bite, ready to see if Roswaal's claim held true. Subaru felt a wave of relief as he scanned the food before him. Everything seemed normal, no exotic ingredients, nothing beyond human comprehension. Taking a bite of what resembled toast, he nodded in approval. This is way better than usual. Lifting his head, he caught sight of the blue-haired maid standing nearby. She made a gesture with her fingers that looked like a fox. Not entirely sure what it meant, Subaru responded by forming two frog signs with his hands. Wait, so you're the one who made this? He asked. I can call you Rem, right? Yes, Rem replied with a polite nod. Rem is responsible for the cooking in this household. Sister is not particularly skilled at it. Oh ho, so you twins have different strengths, huh? Subaru mused. That means the pink-haired one is good at cleaning but not cooking. Yes, that is correct. Sister excels at cleaning, laundry, and other domestic chores. Then, since you're the one good at cooking, does that mean you're bad at cleaning and laundry, Remran? Rem's calm expression didn't waver. No, Rem is proficient in all domestic chores, including cleaning and laundry, more so than sister. Wait, then why is the pink-haired one even here? Subaru blurted out. The revelation caught him off guard. One twin mastered all household tasks, while the other specialized in just one. That was an unexpected dynamic. Yet, Ram, who stood beside Rem, seemed entirely unbothered by the conversation. She hadn't even attempted to defend herself. Subaru narrowed his eyes. Huh, so maybe they have different roles. Ramchi is actually amazing at combat. No, wait, is she in charge of nighttime services? His imagination ran wild. Oh man, I'm itching to learn more about this mansion tonight. Sister, Rem said, clasping her hands together with mock concern. The guest seems to have doubts about you. Ram echoed with an exaggerated sigh. The guest seems to be undressing me in his mind. The twins exchanged dramatic glances, as if Subaru had committed some great sin. Watching their antics, Roswaal chuckled. Very good. Because of their strong personalities, Ram and Rem may seem distant when meeting a guest for the first time, do they not? You don't mind their quirks, huh? Subaru smirked. I guess when the master's so full of flaws, it's only fair the servants are too. But, hey, it's a fantasy world. I'll tolerate anything. Before Subaru could continue, Amelia cut in. Actually, those two are amazing, she said, dipping her spoon into her soup. They take care of nearly everything in this mansion. For their race, it's not really that difficult. Subaru frowned. That still sounds like a crazy amount of work. Amelia's expression hardened slightly. You don't get it. Right now, Ram and Rem are the only servants here. Subaru blinked. Hold up, what? He turned to Roswaal. Are you serious? You're saying two people run this entire place? Oh yes, that is certainly the case at the moment, Roswaal confirmed. That's ridiculous. No matter how skilled they are, that's way too much work. Are you under some kind of, I can't hire more servants curse or something? For a moment, Roswaal said nothing. His hands folded together on the table, his usual playful expression unchanging. But in his eyes, something shifted, a quiet intensity that altered the entire atmosphere. Subaru stiffened. Oh, did I just step on a landmine? Sensing the tension, he quickly reached for his dessert, a ring of fruit he'd been eyeing for a while. Taking a bite, he focused on the soft, juicy texture, hoping to casually steer the conversation away from whatever trouble he'd just triggered.